Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, when you talk quite often to different audiences, as it happens to me during the last years, you sometimes use a kind of opening formula that goes approximately like this, that it is today a special honor and a great pleasure to talk to this eminent audience. Yeah? And when you pronounce a sentence like this, you, as a philosopher, feel immediately an association with a famous essay from our American colleague Stanley Cavell, who became a famous scholar in the United States by a single article or a single essay that appeared under the title "Must We Mean What We Say?" Yeah. Maybe you remember that famous essay. Written from a Wittgensteinian point of view that includes the conclusion that it is not necessary to mean what we say, but we have to say it correctly. Today it's different because it is very easy to really mean what I say when I repeat that it is a real honor and a real pleasure to be here. We have prepared for that event almost for 1 year, exchanging innumerable electronic messages. That is the way the world spirit in our day is working. Fortunately, all the Holy Seat in Rome has recognized the importance for the Internet, for the labors of the Holy Spirit. So also we from the philosophical faculty can share this experience and this benign pleasure that the Internet is now a means of communication for philosophers too. You will see that the next days will be dedicated to a kind of Babylonian experiment. As we do not really share a common language, we have decided to use English, which actually is not a language, but just a means of communication, as you can easily see if you travel on airports or trains or telephone companies and so forth. I don't think that most of Middle and Central Europeans will never be able to use English as a true language. But for us it will always remain a means of communication, and the language level is far away. And I think this is especially true for members of the Spanish-speaking world, especially for the Spaniards themselves, who since the defeat of the Trafalgar fleet simply refused to learn the language of the enemy. Actually, there is a more elegant explanation to the hesitation of Spaniards to learn another language or simply English, an explanation that I owe to Isidoro Reguera. When I last met him, he gave me an explanation that was really very seducing. He said by his father he had heard that a true English nobleman, or better, the tongue, the tongue of a Spanish nobleman would forever refuse to produce the strange movements that the correct pronunciation of a foreign language would require. So this is this was from the very beginning an explanation of the Spanish hesitations against speaking foreign languages. And he added, it seemed to be also the opinion of Isidoro's father, that foreign languages are just for secretaries and for people who assist you and who have a professional vocation to speak other languages. But a true Spanish nobleman would never agree to enter into a foreign language. So unfortunately for all of us, it is a little bit too late, and for me especially, because unfortunately I have learned 3 or 4 or 5 languages. It is simply too late to become a perfect Spanish snob. It is too late, and we simply have to deal with the fact that we are condemned to use a foreign idiom. And that will be our situation during the next days, and we have to deal with that. Usually I say I do not speak English, I fight with English. And I think that is the proper description of what we do if we try to assimilate a foreign idiom. It is a well-known topos that the way of the Spirit led from the east to the west, that the Spirit in a sun-like way participated in the eastern sunrise, performed so the great curve of a full day, and sets down in the west. Hegel has constructed his grand narrative about the way of the Spirit according to this sun performance during a whole day. And this topos was taken up by German historians of philosophy when they retold us the story of the Spirit as a way that led from Ionia in eastern Greece to Jena. Jena was, as it were, the place where the effusion of the Holy Spirit in modern time was repeated. Jena seems to has been, as it were, the greenhouse of German idealism, from where a new dissipation, a new dissemination, as Derrida would have said, began, that spread out all over the world, and introduced into philosophy a new motive that was rather absent in former times. Because in the Jena period of German thinking, there was a single opportunity that actually almost never came back again. A single opportunity when philosophy and friendship came together. It is impossible to understand the spirit of German idealism if you neglect the fact that there was a very intensive field of personal relationships between the original members of that movement that later on was called German idealism, to which also the so-called Romantics belonged. And at the very first moment, there was not such a clear distinction between literature, poetry, and philosophy. And in that greenhouse of modern philosophy, Novalis, Schleiermacher, and the young Schlegel, I mean Frederick, have been members of the same community. They used to live together, to exchange philosophical and poetic ideas on a daily basis. and created a kind of philosophical reactor, a kind of philosophical power plant, the emanation of which are still present in the history of modern philosophy, even if the irradiation of that philosophic activities have become rather weak. But what we are going today and in the days to come is simply a kind of early romantic experiment, because we shall reconnect with this melting of motives of philosophy and friendship. That is the reason why I do not feel alone here in Spain and in Girona, but I'm very grateful to be in company of a couple of friends of mine who are very familiar with my writings and my work since several decades. I'm particularly grateful for the fact that Isidoro Reguera has accepted to be also a guest of the University of Girona. He is an extraordinary person. He is the most courageous person that I personally have ever met, because he accepted the proposal of the editor of the publishing house Hirurela to do the translations of an absolutely untranslatable book called Sphären, Sphären 1, Sphären 2, Sphären 3, in 3 volumes in the German original, representing 2,400 pages. After which Isidoro felt a little bit tired and felt like making a sort of break that lasted several years. But now he fell back into the attitude of translating monstrous Sloterdijk readers. And recently, I don't have it here, a new book translated by Isidoro Reguera came out. So it's virtually no person in the world except my French translator who knows especially this book, the trilogy, Spheres, better than Isidoro Reguera does, because translating means almost learning by heart a text or a book, and it is not impossible that he knows the book better than I do. So we will share our experiences. I myself as the author of the book, he as a translator, and on Friday evening you will be able to make your own judgment. Who knows the book better? And I'm not at all convinced that I should win this competition. On the other side, within this sim philosophical experiment, this expression, by the way, goes back to a word that Novalis and Friedrich Schlegel used in order to describe their kind of communication. As another participant in our sim philosophical experiment, I'm happy to have here Carlos Oliveira from the University of Munich, temporarily also professor of philosophy in Karlsruhe. That's a place where I am at home. He's a disciple, might be the correct term, of the outstanding scholar of German idealism in Germany, Dieter Henrich, Professor Emeritus from Munich, and certainly among the younger philosophers in German, one of the outstanding characters. From Thursday on, for Thursday and Friday, we shall have the pleasure to have also a third colleague among us, a young Jewish-French philosopher whose name is Joseph Cohen, who is a disciple of Jean-Luc Nancy and Emmanuel Levinas, and who holds a chair of philosophy in Dublin today. He will be with us on Thursday and Friday, and as I just have learned, he will give a separate class of his own on ethics. Let me just add one or two personal remarks with regard of the place of Spain on my personal map of Europe. I remember that when I was in my younger days, Spain was just a distant myth at the western borders of the world. Spain represented, as it were, the real Finisterre of Europe. It hardly existed. It had approximately as much reality as Eastern Germany, that had simply, for people of my generation, had simply disappeared behind the Iron Curtain. It did not exist. There were elderly people who were still dreaming of reunification, but for the younger one, East Germany simply was not there. We knew that unhappy people were living over there, but we were accustomed to the fact that unhappy people were spread all over the world, and that the world as such is absolutely in the hands of unhappy people. So Eastern German people did not play a particular role in the totality of unhappy human beings. It simply were not there. But unfortunately, the same was true for all those inhabitants of that distant country of Spain. It simply did not exist. We knew that some tourists, German tourists, had developed a strange inclination to spend their holidays over there and come back and bring Spanish cuisine to Germany. But that didn't change very much of our collective ignorance with regard of. I remember quite well in that year when Franco died. We started waking up and learned to have a new look onto this country. Germans are very fond of king stories and stories about royal families, and so immediately the Spanish royal family was included in our world vision as a new provider of stories for tabloids and contemporary mythology about royal life. And by and by, we understood that this time it was different. With Juan Carlos, the Spanish nation obviously was very lucky. Something like that never had happened before. That a king becomes the man who personally seems to guarantee the democratic transformation of a modern state. So we woke up by and by and learned to look at the western frontier of Europe. And there was one incident that I remember quite well when Spain fully entered came into the middle of a common European consciousness. That was when in 2004, the month of March 11, the terrible accident, or however you would call that act of terror at the Atocha station in Madrid happened. And I remember quite well how all the people around me, including myself, were sitting in front of the television, looking to what had happened. And for the first time, it did not happen over there; it happened here. So Madrid had become really part of our own body. It was not far distant; it was here among us. And I remember quite well how impressed everybody was in Germany about the behavior of the people of Madrid, who came into the streets silently, by millions, walking through the streets and demonstrating their refusal, and showing to the rest of the Europeans what democratic maturity can mean. That was an unforgettable moment. And suddenly Spain ceased to disappear in the Finisterre of Europe and became, as it were, a country of the middle, the western middle, or the Middle West. And I think this is a beautiful moment of European history, and that reminds me that the behavior of the population of Madrid immediately reconnects with the behavior of those people who originally created what we, until our days, call the res publica. The res publica is an invention that came out of the collective revolt of the Roman population after the outrage committed by the son of the king Tarquinius Superbus in the year 509 before our age. In Titus Livius, we read in the first book, Ab Urbe Condita, how the Romans overthrew the king's rule of the family of the Tarquins, and created the first, as it were, democratic society on European soil, together with the democracy as it was created in Greece. The son of the king had raped the wife of one of his officer colleagues, Collantinus. The Roman officers had been sitting together during the siege of Ardea, which is a small town in the south of Rome, had been sitting together and had done what officers always do when they sit together. They talked about women, especially their own women, with constant side looks to the wives of their colleagues. And Collantinus was very eager to praise the advantages of his beautiful wife and to make the eloge of the virtue and beauty of Lucretia, upon which Tarquinius Superbus Junior, Sextus Tarquinius Junior, decided to pay her a visit, to make a sexual offer to her, to threaten her, to rape her, and when the young woman had yielded to his desires, she called upon her father, her stepfather and father-in-law, told them what had happened, and killed herself immediately after that report. And the collective indignation of all those who had heard that story was the original political impulse that led to the construction of what we call democracy, or the res publica. The res publica is the product of the psychopolitical construction of born out of the collective indignation of a population that is sharing a strong moral evidence. I think this is not only the primal theme of democracy and republican life, it is the primal theme of political culture as such, and also the primal theme of political ethics. Without a sense of indignation, there can be no democracy. Democracy is always construed against collective insult. That helps people understand what they definitely do no longer want. And from that respect, what happened on the 12th and 13th of March in 2004 was really a very strong political lesson to all Europeans. And for all of us, this was, as it were, in spite of the tragic content of the event, it was a politically beautiful moment, because we learned almost for the first time that Spain is no longer a foreign country, and that Europe really exists, and that we share the feeling of these people as if it had happened to ourselves. I think this is a new dimension of psychopolitical realities. And that leads me to the more philosophical comments I would like to make as an introduction to what we shall do in the days to come. I just used the word introduction, and I immediately have to withdraw this expression, because I do not really believe in introductions. And also my personal work is nothing you can be introduced in. We have to make an effort to bring the primal evidences I'm talking about in my books to presence from the very first moment on. You cannot prepare or introduct a philosophical evidence. You have to produce it in situ. That has right now, and introduction as such is not really a philosophical option. By the way, when I say this, I simply quote Hegel, who was also convinced that philosophy begins with philosophy and not with an introduction into philosophy. This is the main idea of the famous Vorrede to his phenomenology. There is no such thing as a propedeuticum for philosophy. Philosophy has to be present from the very first moment, otherwise it will never come. Or it will remain an entity comparable to the famous Godot. The main actors of Waiting for Godot of Samuel Beckett seem to be waiting for something who comes or will never come. So philosophy, the destiny of philosophy is, as it were, decided in the first sentence. But what is the first sentence? Heidegger was one of the thinkers of the 20th century who gave a very strong answer to that question by simply saying that philosophy deals with being in the world. I think this is one of the strongest first sentences that have ever appeared in the history of thinking. In spite of the fact that at first sight it sounds banal, but it is not. It is not a banality. Far from being so, it is a revolutionary sentence, and you will understand the revolutionary content of this sentence when you compare this with the first sentence of classical metaphysics. Because the classical metaphysics have a different first sentence. Classical metaphysics defend the thesis that it deals with the world as such, and that the philosopher assumes the standpoint of the world against himself. So, classical philosophy is an exercise in an eccentric positionality. This is a term coined by Helmut Plessner in the 20th of the 20th century. By eccentric positionality, he described the capacity human beings have to place themselves, as it were, next to themselves, to occupy the place of the other, and look onto themselves as if they were not themselves, but the other. So there is, as Plessner says, a kind of constitutive eccentricity to human beings. Being oneself also always means already to have the capacity to assume an eccentric position and look onto yourself back from the position of the other. And that is exactly what classical metaphysics does in its own way. Classical metaphysics expresses the wish or the decision to defend the standpoint of the world against the individual. And as you will see, when we come to the second part of my book of the spheres, the whole iconographic tradition of classical cosmography shows us very clearly that classical metaphysics never spoke about being in the world, but only about the essay or this eccentric effort to assume the standpoint of the world as such. And beginning with the sentence and assuming that the first sentence, philosophy is about being in the world, suddenly throws us back into the predicament of existence without all that metaphysical comfort that classical philosophy was supposed to provide human beings. Classical metaphysics is a kind of intellectual religion, as it were. It is based on the assumption that you can, as it were, die in your own lifetime, disappear into being, and see yourself live on as a part of the world, but no longer belonging to it. If you have ever dealt with classical Indian philosophy, you will find that pattern in an even much more elaborated form than in the Western strand of traditions. But nevertheless, the Indian way and the Western way converge on that basic assumption that it is not the being in the world that makes that makes the essence of metaphysics. But metaphysics is the essay to take the standpoint of the world against yourself. You know. One of the last authors who were very well aware of that attitude, even if he was one of the strongest critics of classical metaphysics, was the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. You know. He refused the essential gesture of classical metaphysics, which he calls to transcend, the gesture of transcending. So this is the proton pseudos of metaphysics, because human beings cannot transcend. They are condemned to a kind of permanent immanence. Nevertheless, he had the best feeling for what classical metaphysics was all about, even if he expressed his feeling on the field of religion, the philosophy of religion. During his last years, he wrote a very impressive essay under the title "About the Sublime that lies in the idea that against God we are always wrong." Ja, in German, über das Erhabene, das in dem Gedanken liegt, dass wir gegen Gott immer Unrecht haben. Ja. And I simply would propose to retranslate this into the philosophical language. The classical sublime philosophy consists in the idea that against being we are always wrong, and against the cosmos we are always wrong. The cosmos in order, but we disturb the order of the cosmos, and re-establishing the order of the cosmos cannot be reached without a kind of sublime elimination of the source of disturbance, which is human subjectivity. As long as the human subject is there, the order of the cosmos cannot be maintained. And the elimination of subjectivity is, as it were, the basic passion of classical metaphysics. If you make this horizon clear, you understand the revolutionary power of the new first sentence of philosophy uttered by Martin Heidegger in the middle of the 20s of the last century, when he said philosophy deals with the being in the world. Because from that moment on, it is no longer a question to eliminate the subject, but instead of that to assume the full burden of subjectivity without having the possibility to take refuge into the sublime order of a metaphysical cosmology in which we could only appear as a disturbing factor. You have to accept the disturbance as existence. And that is, as it were, the starting point of my philosophical work since, I would say, since I came back from India in 1980. That makes almost 30 years now that I'm, as it were, post-Indian, post-metaphysical philosopher. I have discovered Heidegger after my Indian adventure. I have never read him before. Before India, I used to be a reader of Adorno, necessarily. After India, I became a Heideggerian, and after becoming a Heideggerian, I became a Nietzschean. And I still pretend that this is an almost logical and irrefutable kind of teleology, or it is the unfolding of a potential that was implicit in this post-Indian situation I had to elaborate, and that brought me to the point where I am now. But as a good Heideggerian, I understood that the first sentence of philosophy that deals with being in the world implies a decision that has not been made clear neither by Heidegger himself nor by his disciples. It implies a decision of if the predicament of existing, of being there, of this implies poverty or richness. I think Heidegger and his disciples always left this question open. And most of them have taken, in my view, the wrong decision, because they all believe that being there, being in the world, is a situation of extreme impoverishment, is as it were the summit of poverty. Yeah. For most of the Heideggerians, to be there means to be the poorest, the poorest human being existed in the world. Yeah. There can nothing be so poor, so deprived of any privilege, so spoiled, so naked as you are, if you understand that you exist. And here my Indian experience disturbed the sublime peace of post-Heideggerian pessimism. I came back from India with the feeling that it is our duty, philosophical duty, to develop a new hermeneutics of riches. Yeah. That to be in the world is to be a shareholder of an unalienable treasure. And that's the true name of being is treasure. To be in the world is to share a treasure. That was it was a climatic opposition that led to my dissidence with critical theory in Frankfurt school style, and with my dissident position with regard to everything that came from Freiburg, because these were all teachers of poverty. They were all teachers of human misery, and even if it was, to be sure, a luxury form of misery, it was a highbrow declination of the predicament of being a human being. It was simply an explanation of the Grundstimmung, which is a Heideggerian term, the Stimmung of poverty. To be in the world is to be a poor, to lead a poor existence, and to be the poorest entity that ever can exist. But finally, all my work is just the negation of this basic assumption of the Christian and Jewish and in general monotheistic hermeneutics of poverty. When I came from India, I just had the feeling I have nothing to do as a philosopher, as a writer, and as a human being, as to express the message that we had found the treasure island. Okay, it was, to be sure, a kind of India was for us, the Western visitor was a kind of theme park. You must not understand. We never understood while we were there that we never have been to India. We have been into a kind of Californian enclave within India, an American, totally Americanized India, a Californized, a Californian transformation of India. But nevertheless, the Indian basis was there, and the basic message is that a human being can never be really miserable when he or she understands that he or she is a shareholder of the biggest treasure there is. And this was, for me, the discovery. I must admit, I was a very convinced member of the German misery community. And I'm still convinced that most of the Spaniards today go on to populate these countries, and because the nation of the United States of misery are still the leading world power. This is the real state of the world, and the members of the United States of misery are killing each other. You recently read what happened in Pakistan. This is just the front, the actual front in the war of different parties of the United Nations of poverty and misery. But the basic philosophical message is that we have to unlearn the language of alienation, the language of poverty, and to start a new training in which we try to express a different approach to existence. And here Heidegger is still a good advisor, because he met the accent on the fact that the Latin word existentia is just the Latin or the Indo-Germanic reflection of the Greek word ecstasis. Philosophy is about ecstasy. Philosophy is about ecstasy, because being in the world means to have an immediate access to the immeasurable riches of all that is there at the same time. And not only at the same time, but synchronicity is very, very important to a true understanding of the concept of existence. It has a presentistic element to it. We should not remove, even if Heidegger's, if Derrida's deconstruction of classical, the metaphysical temporality are very sublime. But finally, he also remains one of the most important thinkers of the hermeneutics of poverty, because for himself there is no real present. But we have to retain the concept of presence, because the riches of existence can only be unveiled if we admit the possibility of the synchronicity with everything that is here and there together with us at the same time. Otherwise, you would enter into the Derridian space where everything you try to grasp disappears immediately. It is a kind of perverse treasure hunt the deconstruction. According to my reading of Heidegger, human beings are not necessarily treasure hunters, they are treasure finders who misinterpret normally their findings and believe that what they have found is of no real value. But in deconstruction, it becomes even worse. But because at the very moment when you think you have made a real finding, have really found the treasure, you immediately have to learn that what you believe to hold in your hands is not really there. So no real presence. So in short, I make the proposal to translate an important theological term, the term of pleroma, into the vocabulary of the philosophical discourse. And what philosophy is about is pleromatic analysis. So, for today, I did not want to go further than this. If we have some time left, we simply could start with our working group. Most of you should have the photocopies of the first chapter of Spheres 1 in your hands, do you? Yeah. If that is the case, we could simply try to read these pages together and see if you can rediscover what I have been saying right until now in the way the text is written. I hope that our common reading will not totally falsify this kind of self-interpretation. I must add something that is important for the understanding of the text. I never reread what I have written, and so we share the experience of the quasi-first reading of these passages. I wrote that in 1996-7. When I got a free semester, a so-called sabbatical at the University of Karlsruhe. Then I wrote the first volume of the Spheres. So for myself, it is a strange experience. It leads me back to a point of view that I incarnated in 1997. So I haven't reread the text since 14 years, and this is almost the same as your situation. You have never read it before, but not reading something for 14 years, that leads almost to the same situation. Yeah.
What does it mean, being rich for those who are not?
There are no poor people.
I mean,
Yeah.
as a political philosopher, how can we announce the joy of being rich to those who are poor?
Yeah.
in the concrete world.
In this world, I'm not sure if we are speaking about the same world. Yeah,
That's why
yeah,
I wish that you make
yeah. So in the strange world of ontology, poverty cannot exist because the word existence is as such the opening towards the sphere of an ontological treasure. Yeah. But also philosophically, you can think yourself poor, and that is exactly what the most of the false poor of our days do. You know? They abuse the material poverty in order to falsify the philosophical opening that could help us to understand that there is no alternative to richness. This is one of the strange concepts that do not have an opposite. In theology, we have the term of kenoma as an opposite to pleroma. Pleroma means die Fülle, so the fullness of riches, which is one of the highest divine attributes. So if God is something that can be said precisely and with absolute certainty about Him, and He is rich. But in the Christian theology, we have also developed the possibility to accompany God into the uttermost poverty, which theologically is called kenoma, the spoiling, the nakedness, the total abandon. And that is what the Christ experiences between the Holy Friday and the Easter Sunday. This is the kenomatic stretch of His way through being. But politically speaking, the discourse about the constitutive or ontological richness of the human being is certainly a provocation, because even if I admit that I might be wrong in assuming that I'm a poor being, I might be materially poor. It could be that the means of living I'm looking for are not given. Distribution, that wealth should be, and ontologically is, the best distributed thing in the world. Just as Descartes pretended that the bon sens is the best distributed thing in the world. We should find a way to show how, from this assumption of richness as the best distributed thing in the world would lead to a theory of material distribution. And maybe we shall have time to show that this cannot be performed in the framework of classical socialist or liberal theories, because they are all based on the theory of exchange, of social exchange. Whereas I'm convinced that the basic gesture of existence, that existence is simply given, as a givenness. is the highest gift, or the absolute gift, that this gesture has to be repeated within existence as that what Nietzsche has called the gift-giving virtue. Die schenkende Tugend, that we know from the second part of the Zarathustra. The gift-giving virtue is exactly the way that the richness of being can be interpersonally been handed down. And the other way is, of course, is stealing. So if the gift is not given and you feel you need it, you have to steal it. Of kleptocracy. And as a matter of fact, we are living in a kleptocratic society. Not only that the rich are stealing from the poor, but the novelty of our form of society is that also in our days the state is stealing from both rich and poor, but is stealing more and better for the first time from the rich, and entering into that activity of redistribution. But I'm convinced that the actual system of redistribution that we are practicing in our days is absolutely insufficient, and that it is psychopolitically devastating because it suppresses the honor of the donor. And if you pay 50% of your annual income into the fisc of your nation state, and the psychological result of that payment is that you still are suspect as one who has second thoughts when paying taxes, and that you are, as it were, the eternal debitor of the state and not the giver. Then everything is condemned to become a moral failure sooner or later. I think the totality of modern fiscality is misconstructed and has to be rethought in terms of giving, and not in terms of owing to the fisc. But that would lead into a quite different field. But I'm very, very grateful for the question, but because it shows that there is a connection between the ontological analysis, the plerommatic analysis, as I would call it, and the ethical and political field. So an ethics of giving would immediately explain why a philosophy of richness is the only way to lay the groundwork for such a kind of ethics.